Okay, so today we're going to be constructing and analyze relative frequency tables. Yesterday we were relative frequency histograms. And the difference is yesterday we just did constructing and analyzing frequency histograms. But today they're going to be relative. We'll talk about what that means. This is not lesson 1. You can change this. It should be lesson 5 of this particular module. So I've already gone over the do now to kind of refresh our memory from yesterday. What I want you to know is today you can have a calculator in use for this lesson, and you should be able to pull one up on your Chromebook so that way you can use it while you're working today. That's because we're going to be doing all of this stuff like yesterday. The difference is we're going to have one extra column over here. It's not just going to be the frequency, it's going to be the relative frequency. And what's the relative frequency? Well, let's talk about it. The relative frequency is the frequency of an interval divided by the total values. It always represents a percent of the data. So let's take a look at this example. So let's say I want to know the relative frequency. I'll zoom in here so it's a little more clear. Let's say I want to know the relative frequency of the large hats. So relative frequency of large hat sizes. So that's what I'm finding out. To do this, I need to take the frequency of an interval. So for larges, the frequency was 9. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to divide it by the total number of values. We can see that there were a total of 40 values. We add up this whole column, we get 40. So I should do 9 divided by 40. So when I type this into the calculator, I need to remember that this is 9 divided by 40. So all I do is I type in 9 divided by 40, and I get this number right here. So I would write 0.225. Now that's not a percent though. I want to change this into a percent. In order for this to be a percent, this is going to represent 22.5 hundredths, right? Because here's my hundredths place. It represents 22.5 hundredths, or 22.5%. All that means is 22.5% of the hats are larges. So 22.5% of the hats are larges. And that's it. That's all we're trying to find out today is the relative frequency of each one. So let's actually start to do this on the next page. Because on the next page, it's the same data set, but now we're finding these relative frequencies. So we can see here for the extra small, I can tell extra small, there were only 2. 2 divided by 40, we get 0.05, which is the same thing as 5 hundredths, right? 5 hundredths, which is 5%. Let's keep going. Next one, 8 out of 40. So that would end up being 0.20. So this is 20 hundredths, making it 20%. And continue on from there. Well, 9 we've already done. Remember, we did 9 divided by 40. That ended up with 0.225, which we wrote as 22.5%. So then think about the division problem we would need to do here. 15 divided by the total number of values, which is 40. Let's type that into our calculator. So I need to do 15 divided by 40. Oh, I end up with another weird decimal, 0.375. What percent do you think that would be? 37.5%. Let's keep going even more. So we have 4 and we have 2. Well, 2 we've already done. We already know that one from the first table. So we know that was 2 out of 40. And that ended up being 5% eventually. Now 4 out of 40, this one's a little easier because it's 4 out of 40. And you don't actually need to type that one in because you know that would be divided by 4 is 1. Divided by 4 is 10. 1 out of 10, that's the same thing as 1 out of 100, or 10 out of 100. I'm just using what I know about fractions here. So that would be 10%. So I just found that a different way. All right, so now for the total, obviously that's 40 out of 40. So obviously the total, all of them together, is 100%, and that makes perfect sense. So if I say the total relative frequency of the column, obviously that is 100%, and that's because it's the entire thing, the entire column. So obviously that's going to make sense. But then it asks, what interval has the greatest relative frequency? What is the value? So I want to think here, what's the greatest relative frequency? Well, yesterday we said 15 was the biggest, and look, it also happens to have the largest frequency. That's the biggest percent out of all of them. So what interval has the greatest relative frequency? The interval of 550 to 570. And that would be the medium hat sizes at how much percent? 37.5%. So that's great. All right, percentage of the head circumferences between 530 and 589. So we need to include a lot more values this time. It's from 530 all the way down through 589, which is right next to 590. So we want to include all of these. That means that we're going to include all of these percents to try to figure that out. Now there's another way we can do this. We can think that there would be, so we're including small, medium, and large. So small, there were 8 people. Medium, there were 15 people. And large, there were 9 people. Remember, this is all the people in this range right here. So how many total is that? Well, we know 8 and 9. We know that is 17. Then we just need to add the 15. So 2 and 7 is 12. So this would be 32. But remember, to find the relative frequency, the percent, we need to do 32 over 40. And again, this is an appropriate time to use your calculator. Everything else should be shown on the page. I don't need you to see my password there. It would be 32 divided by 40. So we end up with 0.8. Or 80 hundredths, which is 80%. So my sentence I can write is the small, medium, and large sizes represent 80% of the data. So there we go, got my final answer. Now you can move on to this portion. And for this section, again, you can use a calculator to find these relative frequencies. But before you do that, you're going to need to find the total amount of responses, okay? So complete this table, complete this page. There's a hint video, but no solution video. So you're going to need to make sure that you think about that. There's no hint, there's no solution video. You're just going to use these to develop hints, and then obviously you'll move on. You'll get your exit ticket done on the very last page, and you'll be good to go.